Hello, my name is Rachael and I am doing a book haul for my very first YouTube video ever. So over the month of May, I have not been working a lot, so I have done a lot of book shopping to keep myself occupied. Essentially, I just went down to Kmart and I picked out anything that looked good. Quite often I can be a bit of a cheapskate and I look for those deals, the discounts, the $9 books, and I grab those. I also get a few other of the more expensive books if they look good, but quite a few of these were on sale. So the first book that I grabbed, I got on recommendation from a booktuber. I can't exactly remember the particular video that I watched, but there are lots of videos talking about this book. It is called Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. She is an Australian author, and this is a mystery. Liane opens up the book with a murder at a primary school, and the rest of the book we are learning about these different women, mothers at the primary school, and about their lives and the events that led up to that murder. Quite a good book, a good read if you like sort of chick litty mysteries. It does hit on some big themes such as domestic violence and bullying, so beware of those things before you decide to read it. It is also a TV show. I believe the second season is about to come out. Here in Australia it's coming out on Foxtel. I don't know about everywhere else. The second book I grabbed is also by Liane Moriarty. This one is called The Last Anniversary. I've also read this book, and it is about a girl named Sophie Honeywell. She inherits a property on a private family island from her ex-boyfriend's aunt. Yes, that's right, her ex-boyfriend's aunt. Very strange. And it's about her moving onto the island and her getting to know the family that lives on that island. There is a secondary story about the Monroe baby, and there's a mystery surrounding that, and eventually learn about that baby and what happened to that baby's family. I didn't particularly enjoy this book. I probably won't reread it, but if you are looking for some Australian authors, this might be something for you. The next book that I'm going to talk about is I Found You by Jewell. I have just read this book and it was really interesting. So there are like 3 little stories happening in the book. We meet Lily, who is I believe Ukrainian. She has just gotten married and her husband has gone missing. We then have Alice, who's living on the English coast, and she finds a man on the beach that has absolutely no recollection of who he is. And then we have the story of 2 siblings that was happening 23 years prior to the other 2 stories, and there's something that happens there. Now, all of these stories do eventually come together, and it's a little bit of a mystery to figure out where has Lily's husband gone and what has happened to this man on the beach and how are they connected. Really good story, really good read. I would highly recommend I Found You by Jewell. Next one I'm going to talk about is Red Sparrow. So this is one of those books. I actually bought this separate to the rest of these books. I bought in it before I bought the rest of them, and I didn't really know what to think about this. I'd seen the movie trailers with I think it's Jennifer Lawrence around, and looked interesting, and I thought I would pick it up. I haven't read too many spy thrillers, but I did enjoy it. So it's about there's 2 main characters. We've got Dominika, who is a Russian intelligence officer who is sent off to Sparrow School, which is essentially where you learn to use sex as an espionage tool. And then we have, I've got his name, Nate. That's right, Nate, who is a CIA intelligence officer. who is working out of Russia and has a government informant working for him, and he is a handler. And it's just a story about espionage and secrets, and it is post-Cold War, which was really interesting, I thought. And it's got this whole idea that the Cold War is still going and there's still all of these issues between the US and Russia. I did really enjoy it. It's worth a read if you like spy thrillers. The next big book I picked up is called The Secrets of Silvergum by Mandy Magro. This is also an Australian book. I think Kmart is having a bit of an Australian author, I don't know, they're trying to spruik Australian authors, which I think is quite a good thing. It's not something that I have read a lot of in the past, but you know, something I'm willing to give a go. I have read a previous Mandy Magro book, which I think I did quite like. It was this one here, Country at Heart, which I think was about a veteran that had returned from the army, and he was injured, and it was a story about him and his dog, and it was a bit of a love story. I think I did quite like it. I think I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. Now I haven't read The Secrets of Silvergum yet, but my understanding is that it is a going to be some sort of chick lit with a country theme. It's got to do with professional bull riding and 2 friends that are driven apart and then come back together. I'm not sure, but I'll give it a go and I'll keep you updated. Next one I've got is another Liane Moriarty. Again, these were on sale for like $9. Can't go past a deal. And I picked this one up before I read The Last Anniversary, so I still had pretty high expectations after Big Little Lies. I have not yet read this one, but it has very good reviews on Goodreads, and I believe that it is about a girl called Alice, and she is expecting a baby. She's just gotten married. However, she wakes up in hospital and she's no longer pregnant. Several years have passed and she has lost her memory. So she wakes up and she finds out that she's getting divorced and that her children are grown, are teenagers. And it's about the way she comes to terms with that, I believe. I am looking forward to reading this one and I will keep you updated. Okay, so the next one that I got is called In a Great Southern Land by Marian O'Connor. It looks like this. It is another Australian book. Seems to be a common theme here, which is a bit interesting because I usually read English and American authors, but you know, I'll give it a go and see. This is a story set in 1851 with when Australia is still in colony. So I was quite interested in that. I'm very much into historical fiction. So it's set in 1851 and there are 2 characters, Eve Richards, and she is Irish and is sent to Australia as a convert. And there is also Kieran Clancy, who gets a free ticket to Australia to start a new life, and it's about their adventures and their experiences with building a life in Australia. So I'm really interested to read this one and see what that's about. I haven't really read any historical fiction from this time in Australia, so I'm looking forward to seeing what it's about. The next book that I'm going to talk about is the book called Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. This book I'm currently reading, as you can see. I'm about, I want to say 2/3 of the way through, and it is amazing. I can't believe, you know, I was almost going to put off making this video until I'd finished reading the book because I was like that engaged. I've never read anything by Karen Slaughter before, and I don't know how I'd never heard about her. I'm loving her writing style and she has tons of books. So once I finish this, I'm really looking forward to reading another book by her. But anyway, Pieces of Her, there's heaps of reviews out there so you can find lots of information about it. But it's essentially a story about a girl called Andrea, and she's out at the mall having lunch with her mother for her birthday, and then something really violent happens and she sees a complete different side of her mother, and she starts to question if she ever actually knew her mother. And it's that story about how well can you actually know somebody? Do you actually know your mother? And it's really quite chilling. And so a series of events happened, and Andrea ends up fleeing her hometown for her life, and she is on the run, and she is on a quest to figure out who her mother is and what is happening. We also have a secondary story, which is the story of her mother Laura, and what happened in the past, and you know what this other side of her is actually like. As I said, I'm only 2/3 of the way through, and there have been so many twists and turns already. I'm really looking forward to finish this one off and letting you know how it goes. The next one I got is The Librarian of Auschwitz by Antonio Iturbe. I think that's how you say his name. I am not sure. There it is there. And I picked this up again because, as I just said, I'm really into historical fiction, especially World War II fiction. I have tons of books on World War II. As a history teacher, it is something that I'm really interested in. And yeah, so this one is about a girl called Dita, and I think that's how you say her name, Dita. And she is imprisoned by the Nazis at Auschwitz, and she becomes a librarian. She's originally from Prague, and she is separated from her family. So I believe it goes through, you follow her through her journey through the ghetto and then onto Auschwitz. And so Dita is given 8 precious volumes of books, and she's given the job of smuggling them into Auschwitz and protecting them, and she agrees to do that, and she agrees to sneak them past the guards, and she then becomes the librarian of Auschwitz. And this is actually based on a true story. So Dita Kraus is a real person, and she did actually risk her life to keep those books safe during the Holocaust. So really interested to give this one a go. I have read The Tattooist of Auschwitz, so maybe along similar lines possibly, I'm not sure. Next one I got is another World War II historical fiction, and this one is The Lace Weaver. So this one is set in 1941 in Estonia. The reason that I was drawn to that is there is not a lot of Eastern European World War II historical fiction out there. And I actually, when I was at university, wrote my thesis on the Holocaust in Eastern Europe and the effects there. So I was really interested in this. So it's about a girl called Katrina and her family in Estonia, as I said. So the Red Army, the Russians are approaching, and Katrina and her family are lucky enough to be spared because their farm produces the feed to feed the occupying forces. And Katrina is battling to protect her grandmother's legacy, which is a shawl of lace that has intricate stitching into it that tells the story of their family, and it has been passed down through generations. So it's about, I believe, Katrina's struggle to survive, dealing with that oppression and dealing with life under the Russians. And I think there is also a secondary story going on about a girl called Lydia who is imprisoned in a Moscow prison. Oh yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that's about. So again, that's The Lace Weaver by Lauren Shatter. So the next book that I have is called The Dry by Jane Harper. This is another Australian book, and it has won quite a few awards. I hadn't heard about it until I saw it on the shelf, and I decided to pick it up because it is a mystery, and I'm really loving that mystery thriller genre at the moment. So this book is about a murder. So a family called the Hadler family have been shot. So it is believed that Luke Hadler, who is a father, shot his wife and his son before committing suicide. However, it's left ambiguous. Aaron Falk is a police investigator and he returns to the town that shunned him 23 years earlier. And the twist is that Aaron Falk and Hadler used to be best friends as children. And it's the story about trying to solve that murder and figure out what actually happened to the Hadler family. So really interested to give that one a go. Next one that I've got is by Callie Rimmer, and it is The Things We Cannot Say. Okay, and this is another historical fiction, but I believe it's got dual stories, so a modern story and the historical story, and they alternate, I believe. Again, I have not read this one yet, but I am looking forward to it. 2019, we have Alice finds out that her son Eddie was born on the autism spectrum disorder, and it's about her journey trying to support him. We have this subsequent story in World War II about Alina and Thomas, who were childhood sweethearts. And the night before he leaves for college, Thomas proposes, but their village falls to the Nazis and Alina doesn't know if Thomas is dead or alive. And then we also have this third story, so back in 2019, but in Poland, we have Alice and she's beginning to uncover the story of her grandmother and about what happened to her back in 1942. So really interested to read this. It says that fans of Kristen Hanna and Jodi Picoult will like this book. I love Kristen Hanna and I love Jodi Picoult, so hopefully those recommendations will come true and I will like this one. Only a couple more to go now. So we have, the next one is Call Me Evie by J.P. Pomare. So this one is another Australian book, and this is about a girl called Evie who is being held captive in a rural village in New Zealand by a man named Jim. And Jim is telling Evie that she needs to stay with him because she did something awful back in Melbourne. So Evie doesn't actually remember what happened back in Melbourne, but it's the story of her starting to piece back her memories and trying to figure out how she actually got there and what is happening. I was interested in this book because I am from Melbourne, so very often that you get to read stories from Melbourne that are, set in Melbourne, so that's why I picked that up. And again, it's another thriller which I am digging at the moment. So Call Me Evie. Got 4 more. The next one I'm going to go with is Beauchamp All by Danielle Steele. Very different to most of what I have hauled today. Since high school I have had a soft spot for Danielle Steele. I know they're not particularly well written, they're very methodical, but they're just something that you can go to when you need a little pick-me-up. So I have most of her books, and they're a quick, easy read most of the time. And I quite like the looks of the covers, and they're quite pretty books on the bookshelf too. So this one is about a girl called Winona Farmington, and she dreamed of moving away after college from her Michigan hometown, but then life kind of got in the way. And now she's stuck in a dead-end job with a boyfriend that she doesn't really want to be with and doesn't particularly treat her well. And then, like all Danielle Steele, something happens, and so it's about so the next book that I'm going to talk about is Beauchamp All by Danielle Steele. I know it's very different to any of the other books that I've talked about today, but ever since high school I've had a soft spot for Danielle Steele. Some of the first books that I started to collect, I have most of hers. I just like the simplistic nature of them, the predictability, And when I'm feeling, you know, like I just need some sort of, you know, hopeless romantic book, I like to pick up a Danielle Steele. So Beauchamp All is about a girl called Winona Farmington. You know, and she's graduated from college and she's always dreamed about getting out of her small town. However, she's stuck in a dead-end job with a boyfriend that doesn't treat her very well. And her only escape is a British TV show called Beauchamp All. But she gets fired from her job and her boyfriend does something bad, and she decides to say, you know, stuff it, I'm going to buy a one-way ticket to England where Beauchamp All is filmed, and she goes to the set. So, you know, interesting to see what happens with that. Let me know if you're interested in Danielle Steele, and we can have a chat about our favorite ones. Next one that I'm going to talk about is The Break by Marian Keyes. I used to be a really big fan of Marian Keyes books. You can probably see them here on my bookshelf, but I haven't read them probably in about 10 years. And I saw this on, you know, at Kmart, and it was on sale, and I was like, yeah, sure, I could go with, you know, a nice little witty Irish chick lit comedy. So I decided to grab this one, and it is about a girl called Amy and her husband who says he isn't going to leave her, that he loves her, but he's taking a break from their marriage and their children and their life, and he's going to spend 6 months in Southeast Asia. And nothing Amy can do can stop him. He is going to leave. But when does that break become a breakup? And it's about that story of Amy being on her own for 6 months, and you know what's going to happen and what is going to happen to her marriage and her family. So looking forward to seeing what that one is. I usually find Marian Keyes books quite funny and witty and light-humoured, so I'm looking forward to seeing what that one is. 2 more. So the next book that I'm going to talk about is The Girl Before by J.P. Delaney. And this is a book about a girl called Jane who finds this amazing apartment that she can move into. It's an ultra minimalist house by this really amazing architect. And the only condition when she moves in is that she has to abide by these very strict rules. And she's, you know, ecstatic to move in. However, Jane learns that the girl that lived there before had a very mysterious death, and Jane starts to worry that she's going to have the same fate. So another thriller compared to Girl on the Train. Looking forward to reading this one. Again, it's got some good reviews on Goodreads, so I'll let you know. And the last one that I have is another Liane Moriarty, and it is called The Husband's Secret. And this one is the story about Cecilia Fitzpatrick, who is a mother and a wife, and she's also a Tupperware consultant. And she finds a letter from her husband when he's away on a business trip that says, to be opened on my death. Except her husband isn't dead, he's just away on a business trip. And Cecilia is tempted to open the letter, and she finds out that her husband has a secret, and it's not just a little secret, it is a massive secret, and that's all we know about the story so far. So looking forward to giving that one a go, and I will keep you updated. So that is the end of my haul. I'm really excited to read some of those books and to share my opinions with you. Please let me know if there are any that you would like to hear more about. If you like this haul, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I really appreciate all of your support for my very first YouTube video. Thank you and goodbye.